Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bad Thought Studios. Today is a very special episode. We got Jay Sheer here today. We're actually going to be watching a live reaction for me. I'm for sure he's watched it, but live reaction for me for his movie coming out sometime next year. It's a trailer called No Vacancy. It's a movie called No Vacancy. We're going to be watching the trailer today, and we're going to give a little bit. He's going to give a little bit of insight on the movie and what it took to actually come up with the concept of the film and stuff like that. So, but let me introduce Jay Shear. He's been on the show a couple times, but in case you guys haven't seen him, Jay Shear, welcome, brother.
Hey, it's always good to be here. Always good to hang out with you, Tone. So thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to seeing what your reaction is. That's what is going to be really fun about this video.
And dude, I want to thank you for giving me this is your film and you're on, my show, and I'm gonna get a reaction to your film. I'm blessed, dude. Like it's
Oh,
really
I
cool
feel
to
blessed that
have.
you invited me, man. So we're both blessed.
All right, cool, great. And I, I've seen some of your previous work. Your star. Forgive me, I forgot the Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars Rivals. I was a
Rivals. There you go.
co-writer and producer on that one. Yep.
And I've told you this before. I loved everything about that. It was only
That's
what
awesome.
6 minutes, 7 minutes, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted more. Like I told you, I was pissed.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I'm going to be more excited for this too.
Cool.
So the first question I wanted to get into is what is No Vacancy? I know
Mm,
you've have some story behind it because it is a prequel, if I'm not mistaken,
that's
correct?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, so if you can kind of just tell the audience what is No Vacancy, you don't have to go into like, what it's about, just
Okay.
just the what it is.
Yeah, just what it is, why it exists.
Yeah.
So, my co-writer Nathan Chuck and I, we wrote a feature-length script called The Harlequin. And what tends to happen when you're trying to get like a feature made is a lot of times it makes sense to do what's called a proof of concept. And sometimes people will do like a proof of concept that's just a trailer. Sometimes people will do a proof of concept that's like a few scenes from the feature film that they want to make. I have friends who have done that. And the reason you do that is because it's kind of like having a resume, right? It's basically like saying like, I can do this because I did this, right? It's a very
Gotcha.
similar kind of concept. And so after I wrote the Harlequin, I told Nathan, my co-writer, I'm like, hey, I have another idea for a film that would be a lot easier to shoot, be cheaper, be easier to do it. And it's a short film, but I didn't want to like steal scenes from the feature. As a proof of concept, or I didn't want to create a trailer. I actually wanted to create another story. And that's just because I'm a writer. So like, why not
Yeah.
another story, right? So then I said like, I'm going to write a prequel film about how some of the characters get to point A of the feature. Like, so this is what this is. It's a proof of concept that's a prequel. And it's a short film. So it'll be about 20 minutes or so, I think, by the time we're done editing it.
And I remember we had you on the podcast, you were kind of explaining, a normal short film is like a 6 or 7 minute video, if I'm not mistaken, but
Yeah.
yours is actually a 20-minute video. Now,
Yeah.
what made you want to do that instead of making it the normal six, like a normal short film, like you were explaining?
That just kind of happened naturally. So here's what tends to happen. Um, it's very difficult to have a complete narrative arc happen in like 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Even Star Wars Rivals, there's a character arc that happens, but like the plot isn't actually like completely finished. Like, and that's normal in a short film. In a short film, what's normally happens is like they leave you on a cliffhanger, or they complete a thought, but they don't complete the story.
Gotcha.
And so I was kind of like, well, I want to showcase that we actually know how to write a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that we can actually complete a thought. And so to me, that the length wasn't at issue. I had also seen I'm gonna blank on his name. I think his name is Martin McDonald. I can't remember the name. He's the guy that did 3 Billboards Outside, whatever it is, Missouri. He also did Banshees of Inisherin. He did really talented filmmaker In Bruges. He did In Bruges. His first film that he ever did was a 20-minute short, and he got he got offered a deal from that short, 20-minute short. And
Wow.
so I was like, well, I'm not going to shy away from doing a good story if it's a if I feel like it's a good story, you know.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
did. We felt like it was a good story, and we felt like the 20 minutes allowed us to complete some of the things that we were maybe some other filmmakers aren't able to complete because they're just trying to get to. Not that a short can't be good. A friend of mine, a Twitter friend of mine, really good filmmaker, really good actor. He shared his short with me, and it's like maybe like 11 minutes, and I would say it's kind of like a completion of a thought, but not necessarily a completion of a story, and it's fantastic. So I'm not saying you
Yeah.
can't do a good one. I'm just saying it wasn't what
There,
we were
there,
trying to
there's
keep it.
just there's benefits to all lengths of
That's a
shorts, pretty
good way to
much.
say it. Yep.
And I think that's like, from what you're saying, even that 6 minute film for, Rivals, Star Wars Rivals, it was amazing. And now the 20-minute film. So you're, as someone who you wrote Star Wars Rivals, and you wrote this one, you're after this one comes out, you're also going to see the difference in you as a director and a writer of
Totally.
how a 6 minute one works from a 21.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that's unique as well.
Yeah, you will see one other difference is I didn't direct the Star Wars Rivals. A really good friend of mine, Ben Anklam, who's an awesome director. He directed Rivals. In fact, he's done a couple short films in the last year and a half that have been phenomenal. So you'll probably see some slight differences in the direction just because we're different.
Yeah.
But he did a phenomenal job on Rivals, so I can't complain about that at all. In fact, I almost thought about not directing um no vacancy, but my friend Lucas, who was being the DP, I was like, can you like, if I am not doing a good job, can you like kind of take over and like co-direct with me? And he was like, yeah, I'll let you take the head on it, but if anything happens like that's, and fortunately I didn't have that problem. Like fortunately we worked together really well, and it was smooth, and everything was really good, and I didn't mess anything up. But since it was my first time, when you put yourself in the producer seat, it changes everything, right? Because if you're the producer, your end goal is I have the best possible product.
Yeah.
And so like it takes I think for me, it takes my ego out of it a little bit. Cause I'm not going to force an issue if it's not going to be as good. If somebody else comes in and tells me like, it would be way better if you did this other thing, as a producer, I'm like, so if the director in me might be like, oh, like, you don't think I'm good enough? Or the writer
Yeah.
in me might be like, what, you don't think, but the producer in me is like, oh, that's way better. Like we have to do that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to be like a producer, because then you get the best product, hopefully.
Yeah, because you kind of get the insights of all aspects of the whole, making a film,
Exactly.
producer, writer, director, stuff like that. And
Exactly.
that's something that I never like. Hearing you say this makes me want to experience what you've gone through, or what you see as those particular jobs. Like, film's always been something that's I've loved doing, watching movies and TV shows with my dad and brother growing up, was some of the fondest memories I have as a kid. Like, those are some of the bonding. Like, my brother and I, we bonded over watching Dragon Ball Z.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He used to go down to the store, and some of the VHS tapes that they would get imported from Japan. It would be it'd be subtitled, but we would watch the Dragon Ball Z's that came out over there and here in the US. So that, it was something we bonded over. And one of my favorite movies of all time was Crimson Tide. And I watched that movie with my dad, and it was one of the best movies I've seen. And we kind of, we like those military movies, and those, those big plot movies. And that's what I loved about movies. So
That's awesome.
now, getting now the other side of the camera is hearing you say all this. It's just so intriguing to me. So intriguing.
That's awesome. It was really, really fun. I mean, when there is a, we were talking about this before we started, but the Creator Crew YouTube channel, which is hosting the trailer, is not currently working for whatever reason. But when it comes back up, there's a phenomenal playlist of a bunch of behind the scenes footage from all the people who were on set. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in filmmaking, to check that out. It's a little bit more on the technical side. Like, there's not interviews with any of the actors. There's a brief interview with me in one of them, which I really appreciated. Shout out to Brittany for including me in that. But there was just so many talented people talking about how they do what they do and how they contributed to the film, from the technical side,
Yeah.
that it's a really good like behind the scenes of how stuff actually gets done. And there's a bunch of people. Shout out to Kofi too, because Kofi had a video in there. These are all YouTubers, by the way, so they all have YouTube channels, and they're all. What I didn't know going in, I was telling you this before that we started too. What I didn't know going in was that I didn't know how many YouTubers were showing up to be crew members. I just showed up because, again, our DP Lucas Colombo, he brought in most of the crew. So when he brings in most of the crew, I'm thinking it's like his employees or like people he's worked with in the past, and a lot of them he had worked with in the past. But a lot of them were YouTubers that were brought in by Armando. Armando runs the Mondo Bites YouTube channel, and so all of these people were coming in, and a lot of them were talking about like, I'm usually a DP, but I was actually serving as a gaffer on this shoot. Like, you know what I'm saying? I didn't. I just thought that they were doing a good job, so I'm like, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see. Like everybody was really humble. There was not a single person with an attitude problem, which, having worked with other films and with other people, that is a very unique situation.
Yeah.
Usually
Big
people
head
have
for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn. And I you hear all these stories of like actors and directors headbutting all the time, and I'm pretty sure it's really, I guess it could be toxic in some ways to, some, but you hear these directors and producers, when you hear the good side of actors and the good stories of like how well they meshed, and you could see that on the film too. Like you could see how well this was directed and stuff like that. So that's very important when it comes to film, period, is you could see that kind of connection from the director to the actor. And that, I feel, like I said, I think that's amazing when it comes to films. I can't wait any longer, so I'm gonna start.
Let's do it, dude. Let's go.
I'm gonna start this up. By the way, before we start it, I wanted to see there was a couple videos you put out of the playlist you were talking about.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get to see it because I didn't want any kind of correlation to the trailer, because I knew some.
And I will tell you, there are minor spoilers in some of their behind the scenes content, because they'll be like, we're filming this scene right now. I'm like, well,
oh, damn.
no major spoilers. There's no major spoilers, but there's a couple minor spoilers in there. So just know, heads up, if you're gonna watch the playlist, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
There are a few spoilers in there.
Gotcha. All right, let's get. Oh, not that one. There we go. Let's get this going.
Let's do it.
Today's guest, a Pulitzer Prize winning investigator.
Hold on, my bad.
No worries.
Take that off.
Today's guest, a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist whose work has literally changed the world.
What is it?
A fortune has been spent trying to answer that question.
How did you track it to me?
Let's not draw this out.
Dropping out of the political landscape to focus solely on covering a new phenomenon, the rise of superpowered humans.
We should forgive our enemies, but not before they're hanged.
Oh, shit.
I know who you are, Lazarus!
Truth is a dangerous weapon.
Sometimes I wish you would just trust me.
Was it worth it?
Like Miss Larson. Everything's fiction. The question is whether or not it's to be believed.
Oh, shit.
Lee Larson, welcome.
Oh, shit.
What advice would you give to a newbie?
My advice? Screw journalism.
Oh, dude. Oh, my God.
Do you want to watch it again one more time before we break it down?
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah, do it.
There was something I didn't catch.
You can go back as many times as you want to.
Today's guest, a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist whose work has literally changed the world.
What is it?
A fortune has been spent trying to answer that question.
How did you track it to me?
Let's not draw this out.
Dropping out of the political
okay.
landscape to focus solely on covering a new phenomenon, the rise of superpowered humans.
We should forgive our enemies, but not before they're hanged.
I know who you are, Lazarus!
Truth is a dangerous weapon.
Sometimes I wish you would just trust me.
Was it worth it?
Like Miss Larson. Everything's fiction. The question is whether or not it's to be believed.
Lee Larson, welcome.
Oh my god, dude, there's so much to break down
What
in this.
advice would you give to a newbie?
My advice? Screw journalism.
So if I had to, if that last part, if I had to make an estimated guess, that was probably going to be in the beginning of the film on her way to the motel. If I had to make a guess.
If you had to make a guess, I definitely want to break it down with you. Can I ask you one question before we break it down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, just a couple weeks ago, I was on Bad Thoughts Pod with you and Camper, and we talked about all the behind the scenes stuff and how it came about and like what we were working on. Now, having heard all of that, and now having seen what we put together, just a little bit of a snippet of it, 1 minute out of 20 minutes or whatever, right?
Yes.
What does that seem like? What is your response to like having heard about it and then actually seeing it?
So, as far as like what I ask me the question again. I feel
like what did you think it was gonna be like compared to what it is like? I guess is what I'm saying. You know, like what did you have built up in your head? And you're like, Jay went out and made a film, and that in my head it was like this. Is it similar to what was in your head, or is it just way different?
No, it is similar. The only kind of so I did have a superhero kind of thought in my head, like she was going to play this not like supernatural superhero, but like she was gonna play the superhero role, as in find why she was being, I believe you used the word blackmailed.
Yep.
In the movie. I feel like she's gonna play that role. You see the flashbacks when she's talking to, I believe it was a flashback because it was in black and white.
Right.
She was talking to the older man, and it looked like the gentleman that was in there with the glasses. I'm not sure if you were talking about the Harley Quinn or this one, but you had mentioned it was gonna, he kind of played that Superman role.
Yeah,
or the Superman, the archetype,
yep.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of plays, I believe you said the Lee Larson was the one who played the what's her name? Why am I blanking on her name? Lois Lane.
Yeah, the investigative journalist. Yep.
So that everything has matched up for me, is from what you said to this. So the archetypes that you were talking about, as far as Lois Lane and Superman, you can kind of see like your version of it, but in a way it's going to be completely different,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Right. So I love that aspect to it.
Yeah, because the what I was wondering like, because I wrote the script, I was there in person. I've seen other iterations of the trailer prior to this one. So for me, it's I almost don't know how to quantify it in my head. I can't even tell you if it's good. I love it. That doesn't mean that it's good, right? Like it's hard for me to. So I love seeing someone else see it for the first time, and I just want to hear like, oh, what did you think? Like because I've lost all objectivity almost. You know what I mean? Like I've just been so immersed in it that to me it looks like the thing that we were doing. So anyway, thank you for.
Yeah, of course. And I think the question that I would ask you is, what there's different types of trailers. Some trailers just have photos and they don't really tell much. Some kind of give a background of what the story is going to be. And what kind of trailer did you anticipate coming out, and did it come out the way you wanted it to be?
So I didn't really have a strong feeling for what kind of trailer I wanted. It's really interesting because like you and I did a show about Game of Thrones, and we talked a little bit about the season 2 trailer. And like as a writer, what I've learned about trailers is that a lot of times it feels like the trailer is just a marketing device. And it's not actually about like what the story is. It's not actually about, it's just meant to like get you hyped to go pay money to see it.
Exactly.
So what I do really like about this trailer is I think it has a little bit of both without giving you too much of either. Like it's got a little bit of the hype factor, but if you listen really closely and you really break down what each one of those lines is indicating, I think you can be like, oh, okay, I kind of can piece together like what's going on here. But you'd have to spend some time with it because it's not super apparent right off the bat. Like that's exactly what's going on, and this is exactly what
Yeah.
this movie's about.
I think if I and I got to be honest when it comes to this, I think if I didn't know what I knew before, I would have some, of course, questions, good questions. But if I didn't know what I knew before, there would be a lot of questions missing. But since I know, so I can't really give that. I don't, because I do know, I know where the story is not gonna finish or leading to because I have no clue. But I people would have questions of like where this story is going to go because there was different things that showed up.
Totally.
The dude in the car, it looked like he was giving her, was the one blackmailing her. The and by the way, you don't have to answer when I'm saying this. It's just me.
Yeah.
You don't have to say yes or no. I got it. No,
That's
but
awesome.
it looked like the girl, I believe it was a girl, excuse me if I'm wrong, who had the mask on and came in. She had she had, and it looked like the blackmail was finally catching up to her. So there's so many questions that I have for this.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
ask me anything.
So the gentleman, the dude with the glasses who was standing next to her, was that another character who was being blackmailed inside the motel or inside the hotel?
That's a good question. No, he is. So, how much do you care about if I spoil it for you? Just right up to the spoilers and almost to the spoiler, but like hold back.
Yes, hold back. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So, I'll just talk about the philosophy of the story. Part of the philosophy of the story, and this is true of the feature film as well. But as a writer, I went through this long process of, and this is actually started with me with Death of a Bounty Hunter, my book, and it was trying to understand what options people have available to them when they're experiencing shame and guilt, and which one of those options is healthy and which ones of those options are not healthy, right?
Gotcha.
And so I explored that a lot in Death of a Bounty Hunter, and then I felt like I understood it pretty well, and then I felt like what I understood from it the most was that it is healthy to let people in and not hide everything, and it is unhealthy to isolate and build walls between yourself and other people when it comes to shame and guilt. And so the Harlequin and No Vacancy are both a working out of what happens when you isolate and what happens when you don't.
Gotcha.
And so in that, so what I'm basically, one of the things that happens is that, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but you can imagine that if you were trying to hide something from someone that you loved and you didn't want them to think badly of you, and so you're hiding it from them, and then they're on the other side of it going like, why aren't you telling me what's going on? And then if that person happened to be one of the most powerful people on the planet and they could help you out in an instant, like at what point would you tell them? You know what I mean? Like at what point would you reveal it? And that's kind of what's going on here. Is it's kind of like this reflection of like Lee Larson is finding herself in a situation where she's facing that very question. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Right. And that's a very intense question, I think, for a lot of people to answer. So,
and it looks like it sounds like, because she, the lady on the TV was kind of introducing her as this big journalist, and it kind of looks like in a way she is one of the best journalists in this movie. But you can kind of see that's her superpower. That's her journalism is, and it looks like from the blackmail aspect of it, it looks like that's going to eventually catch up to her. And I I feel like I'm kind of getting the right points in this, but I kind of want to watch the movie, like, okay, I was right and I was completely wrong for this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I won't tell you any more. I won't give you any spoilers, but I will say that you are You're very close. I'll put it that
Okay.
way, but there's some
Okay.
nuances there that still will come out.
Now, see, I want to ask you so many questions, but these questions will lead to some kind of spoiling.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about the. I'll skip that question. I was gonna ask about the girl who came in with the mask on, but I wanna
Okay, cool,
wait
cool,
for that.
cool.
I want to wait
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So one of the questions I I mean, I guess aside from the movie, but kind of leads into your movie. What was the first? How was the first time directing your film, and how do you think directing a film that you didn't create would you would have a different experience?
That's a
Like
really good question.
how would that experience of your film directing from a film that you didn't write?
Right. Excuse me. I've had this
No, you're
cough
good.
all week long. So first time directing was amazing. What I've told people is that I think that it was the highlight of my career. And when I say that it was the highlight of my career, that's not technically true because I'm including the writing in when I say it's the highlight of my career. It's not
Yeah.
just the directing. Because I think that first and foremost, I will always be a writer. But I think that being a director is interesting because it's a skill set that I didn't know what it was originally. To be honest with you, I wasn't sure exactly what a director did before this. In fact, I have a whole series of videos coming out on my YouTube channel about like what I learned directing my first film.
Didn't you
And
say? Sorry to cut you off. Didn't you
yeah,
say in the podcast you had looked up to see what a
I
director
did. I
does or
looked up.
something like that?
I looked up to see what a director does just to make sure I did it right.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I did, and it was a really great experience. But we had a really great cast and crew, and a lot of them were either friends or friends of friends, and even the people that I did not know beforehand, which a lot of them I didn't know beforehand on the crew side, but they were fantastic. Several of the cast were my friends.
Yeah.
The guy with the hat that you see a couple times, Phil Shabazz is a friend of mine. Like he's been a
Gotcha.
longtime friend of mine. Kirk Boville, who's the guy that you see black and white when he has a lot of lines in the trailer actually.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that says we should forgive our enemies but not before they are hanged, which by the way is a Hine quote, which I just thought it was such a good quote that I had to put it in there.
Put it there, yeah.
But he's been a long-term friend of mine too. Yeah, I've known him for like probably 15 years. His wife actually plays the anchor woman, which is awesome. Like she's the
Oh,
one that
wow.
plays, yeah, they're married. She's amazing too. I had not worked with her before, but she's really, really cool. Really great to work with. So to answer your question, loved it. Loved directing. There's this thing that happens when you're a writer. And as a writer, I try to write really visually. But when you're then told like, okay, but what are we actually shooting today? Right? Like it changes a lot more because you're like, well, in my head, it was this visual, but now I have to think like, where is the camera and where do I place the camera and what do I do with the camera and what does everyone else do around the camera? And I found that experience really fun. It's like a really fun problem to solve, right? Like it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, how do you solve this problem today? Now, when it comes to directing somebody else, a film that I did not write, and I think that this happens for a lot of directors. A lot of directors kind of tend to make it their own because they kind of have to. I feel like
Yeah,
you kind of have to.
exactly.
And I don't know what that experience would be like. I'm not completely opposed to it, but I feel like it would be quite a bit harder. I have a few friends that do that actually. One of my good friends, Joth Riggs, who I watched. He's a director. He was a director. I think he was the first AD or first second unit director. I think he was on Terminator 2. Like he's been done a bunch of really big stuff. He did a how to direct a movie kind of online course, and I took it. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take your online course. So I
Nice.
got to direct this movie. And and he is, I think, a director first, not a writer first, right? Like he just directs other projects. And one of the things he said was, you just have to understand the story as good as anyone else, right? And for me, that was easy because I wrote the story. But
Exactly.
that part would be really difficult because you'd have to understand the worldview that the writer was coming from. You'd have to agree with their conclusions, right? Like I just described to you what I think we should do with shame and guilt. And I think
Mhm.
that that's true because I wrote it out. Like it's true in my life. So I think it'll probably be true in other people's lives. But you could
Yeah.
have somebody else come in and be like, nah, man, that's bullshit. Like I think that's a dumb thing to say. So you'd have to really be on the same page with a lot of that stuff. And I think as long as I could get there and like work with the writer and really respect what they were trying to accomplish, then I would think it would be cool. But
Now that being said, do you think a lot of these like directors say no to scripts because they don't see themselves, not only do they not see themselves directing this film, but just not being as passionate about the script that they read, so they just turn the whole project down? Does that happen?
I think that that happens for sure, but probably only for I don't want to be I don't want to be too I'd have to go. This is anecdotal, right? This is not like I
Okay.
have a bunch of data and I've talked to a bunch of
Yeah, yeah,
directors
yeah.
and they tell me this. It's so hard to get work and good work that I think you'd probably find a lot of directors taking work that they don't particularly love, but they still put everything they can into it because they want to build their resume up.
Gotcha.
Like for example, I would say that a lot of the creators we worked with, they're DPs on projects that are largely like advertisements or like promo for like big corporate things. So probably
Okay.
it's not like their heart isn't in it, but I will tell you that they're putting all of their technical skill into it because I've seen their projects and I go, oh, their technical skill is amazing. Now, whether or not that they think like, oh, that's an amazing product that I can't wait to sell, maybe not always, right?
Yeah.
So I think that probably there's a good number of directors out there who will take the work and then try to make it theirs. There's probably some directors who take the work and just try to make it technically as good as they can make it. This for me was like something a little bit beyond that because it was literally came from the inspiration I had as a writer. So
Exactly.
it was a little bit different than that. And I don't know how that would be to do it differently. It would be really hard for me to say. I know my buddy Ben Anklam, when he directed Star Wars Rivals, he did a phenomenal job. And I don't know, I think he felt like he did get a co-writing credit because he wanted to tweak some things and we worked with him to tweak some things.
Yeah.
But I think he was totally bought in. So I think a lot of directors can get there, but if you can't, then you have to make that choice. Like, do I do it or do I not do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that is probably a harder question to kind of answer when it comes to like on the spot. Like
Yeah.
if you're shown like a script that might not be the best, but you have that free range to be like, okay, I could tweak this and tweak this to make it a little bit better. I'm sure people take it just to, I don't want to say take it for the money, because I'm sure the money's a good aspect to it, but a lot of these directors, you just see some of their passion when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's like a hit or miss when it comes to some of the scripts they probably read too. So
You know where I think you see it the most too is in the cast,
yeah.
because you see like you'll have people that are like super professional and they're showing up and just going to do their job really well, and then you have other people who like Colleen, our lead actress. I mean, the finding the lead actress was really difficult. And I think we talked about this a little bit already, so I won't go into detail, but like we looked at several other options and we actually were going to cast several other people, but they had conflicts. And then when Colleen came in, it was like she was meant to do it, man. Like she was like so into it. She was so dedicated to it. And that like I could tell that like she had a passion. Now she didn't write it, right? But she made the character her own anyways. And
It's so
it
awesome,
just
dude.
and it just so happened like as I was watching her do it, I'm like, you are her. Like you've done it. Like you like not only what's in my head, but what's in your head. They're both in that character, and it's making it better, right? So
Yep.
I think actors have to do that a lot because actors will get paid a ton of money to do stupid shit, and they'll still do it, right? But they have to bring something to it, or at least bring professionalism to it. So
Exactly. And this might be recently or recent. How you say it? Like recently biased or recently?
recency bias, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The guy who played Viserys in House of the Dragon, I think, played that role better than anyone could have ever played that role.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I think it was probably the best acting I've seen all year.
he didn't even get
And
nominated for anything.
actually, he did. He
Oh, did
actually
he?
did. Yeah,
What
he got
did he get nominated for?
he got actually. I take that back. The cast got nominated. I'm not sure if him by himself got nominated for anything. I would
Patty,
have
right?
to.
Patty.
Yeah,
What is his name?
Patty
Constantine or something like that.
Constantine.
Yeah.
Yes. I would have to look that up, but man, he played Viserys to the T, and
Yeah, amazing.
you could tell that he was passionate about being who that was. So
Absolutely.
like I said, you could tell or like you said, you could tell by the cast how well this movie is if they're really connected to that character. So you don't have to say numbers, but kind of like what so how much was your budget for the film, and how would that compare to shorter films like we were talking about, like the 6 minute the 6 minute short films compared to a 20-minute short films? You don't, like I said, you don't necessarily have to say the number. If you want to, you can.
Well, I don't
It's
even
up
know
to you.
I don't even know the final number all that well, to be honest with you, because
Okay.
it got pretty complicated. Okay, so it's a really good question, because so my friend who runs Moai Films and Condor Blue, he has 3 businesses now. He has Condor Blue, Moai Films, and Creator Crew. All 3 of his are co-founded by him. He told me that he basically doesn't like working for under $10,000 a day. So we had it's just a matter of like who he can bring on, right? The
Yeah.
cheaper you make it, the less confidence he has in who he can hire. So we had 4 days, and then on top of that, the location cost extra money than we expected it to. There was a really great location.
Yeah.
And then so we still had to keep it under 50K, because that's the contract we signed with SAG, right? Because
Okay.
there are different regulations with SAG depending on what kind of contract you sign. And we just signed a short film agreement. Short film agreement means it's under 40 minutes and it's under 50K, right?
Gotcha.
However, I will tell you that there were a lot of the people on the crew who were doing stuff just for free because they wanted to get the exposure and be a part of it, and they wanted to highlight some of the brand deals that they have, and they're going to get paid separately through that or whatever.
Nice.
And so that's where the budget, like one of the other behind the scenes guys is like, I think he says he spent like 70K just to get this film started or whatever. And like, I mean, he's not talking about spending 70K on our film. He's saying like, I started this other business and I hired these other people to help me film behind the scenes footage at our film. And so it's like this convoluted thing of like, when you're working with like brand deals and stuff like that, it gets kind of confusing. So, but I would say we're right up there near the 50K mark.
Yeah, the 50K.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that compare to like
sorry, just to clarify, but if you were to go do the same thing and didn't get some of the same freebies that we got, it might cost more than that. That's how I would kind of describe it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And now, since like I said, yours is a 20-minute for this short film, how would a budget compare to a normal short film like the 6-7 minute time that we had initially said before?
Oh yeah, so most of those are going to be filmed in 1 or 2 days. So I have another friend of mine who directed a feature film. He directed his entire feature film for under 70K or around 70K, which is really, really inexpensive. In fact, shout out to that film. You can go watch it.
Okay.
Let me think of what it's called. Oh no, I'm going to come back to you on that because I can't remember the name of it. His name is Chris Easterly. If you look for Chris Easterly, he directed it. He wrote it. You can search IMDb for him. Look at the latest feature that he did, and you can go check that out. But he just did a short film for $2,500. So he pretty cheap. You can do that. A couple of friends of mine who are local actors who were in my table read version of No Vacancy, they just filmed a short, and I bet you they all just did it just because they wanted to do it. Like it probably didn't cost any money.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, so there's lots and lots of different kinds of budgets. I knew I wanted a bigger budget because I wanted to, as a proof of concept, I wanted to show off what we could do. And I knew that if I hired Lucas, it would be expensive because I just know from working with him in the past. Rivals, for example, cost us about $7,000. But when I talked back in the day, Lucas was like, this would cost like twice as much money as this, but everyone just wants to do this, so we're doing it. You know what I mean?
That's so awesome, dude.
Yeah. So,
and when you initially wanted this proof of concept, did you know from the start, like, I want to make this 20 minutes, or did that eventually just happen? Like you just happen to go from the normal 6 to 20?
It eventually just happened. I knew it was going to be a little longer because I knew that there were elements. So, for example, there are some literary elements that I wanted to mix in. So when you hear Kirk's character is the informant.
Okay.
When you hear Kirk's character say, he's the one in black and white that has the hat. When you hear him say, we should forgive our enemies, but not before they are hanged. That is a quote from Hein, like I talked about. Well,
I love that quote, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great quote. It's a great quote. My original one in there, which made it in the trailer, which I thought was cool, is everything's fiction. It's just what you choose to believe, or what should be believed, or whatever he says. That's my original. That's
nice.
I like that one. And that's just a take on like his character's worldview. Like everything is like the story that someone tells, but everyone's experience is slightly different, so it's all technically fiction, and it just depends on who you want to believe. But anyway, in the feature film, two of the characters are talking. They're talking extensively about quotes from literary works. And so I wanted to work, or some philosophical quotes. I wanted to work some of those into the short film, right? So like every time I added an element that's in the feature that also appears in the short, it got a little longer. But I wanted to showcase that like all of these things are in the feature. Like if we do these things and pull them off, then we can do those things and pull them off too. There's a lot of with that. Like you identified it. You said that the stuff in black and white is a flashback. Well, guess what? The stuff in black and white is a flashback in the film too. So it's like we're just showcasing like we know how to do this. Like we can do this. If you give us money to do it, we'll do a good job, you know.
Yeah, and I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I
have all the time in the world, man. I know about this for days.
I would love to talk to you about it, and it's not that I have plenty of time to talk to you about it, but I know I'm gonna ask you questions and spoil the movie for me, and that's just way my head goes because I can like when we went over the House of the Dragon season 2 trailer.
Yep.
The amount of questions we both had, like I will spoil. If you had the answers, I would have asked you everything.
right.
And now that I know you have the answers, I'm gonna stop myself from doing it.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I'll ask you a couple more.
Cool.
When you initially wrote Harley Quinn, did you know you were going to, did you know No Vacancy was eventually going to come, or do you just write things like you write Harley Quinn first, and then and then No Vacancy just came because you had an idea to come from it?
Yep.
Is that how it worked for you?
Yeah, basically. So the order in which it happened was I really would love to make a feature film. We've always wanted to make a feature film. We got a little sidetracked in COVID because it was really hard to make film, so we didn't. We pursued the audiobook instead. But I wanted to make a feature film, and I go, then it's got to be low budget, right? Because like if I come out with like a $50 million script, what are the chances that ever gets made? If it does get made, I probably sold it to somebody else because they're not going to like be like, hey, you never directed anything. Like here's $50 million, go direct something. So I wrote a low budget intentionally. It was about a concept that I thought was interesting. And then as I was nearing the completion of that script, I was like, oh man, I still need another script to showcase that if you gave me $2 million, I could make a good movie, right?
Gotcha.
And so that's when I started to say, like, I think I need a proof of concept script. And then I already had an idea for what that would look like being a prequel. And by the way, it contains spoilers for the feature, to be honest with you. So when you watch it, it will spoil some things that are revealed in the feature. Most people will not watch it, even if we do get the feature made. But that's just a consequence of me going, well, it is what it is. I got to do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And when you because Harley Quinn was already out and you had already had that story out, what was the thinking of you not using the original Harley Quinn as a finally putting it on screen or putting it on film, and then instead of making No Vacancy a thing, you could just use the story for Harley Quinn? Did that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so Like, why not start filming the Harlequin instead of trying to do No Vacancy first?
Exactly.
Well, that's where the proof
way,
of con-
way better. Way
yeah,
better.
yeah. No, I totally got what you meant. I think for me it was just excuse me. I think for me it was just that felt like it feels like, because so a lot of times when you think about like an investor in Hollywood or a studio in Hollywood, right? Like, just imagine that you're in their shoes and like someone comes to you and is like, I have this awesome script. And you're like, sure, everyone has an awesome script. They all tell me they have awesome scripts. And you go, no, mine's really way better. And they go like, okay, fine, I'll read it. And they read it, right? I mean, how much better would it be if you showed up on their doorstep and were like, hey, I have an awesome script. And they go, yeah, sure, buddy. And you go, well, hang on a second. I have a proof of concept short film, and I'll show you, like, here, you should let me direct this feature because I directed this short. I know you've never heard of me before, and I know that I've never done anything else besides this before. Well, besides, audiobooks and stuff like that. But you should still entrust me with your finances to make a movie that I think will hopefully make us money. Like, so
Yeah.
it just felt like I needed something else. And also I felt like I felt confident that I could make No Vacancy on my own, and that even if there was no chance that I could ever make the Harlequin, that I could still say to an agent or to a manager, which I don't have right now, I could say to them, like, look, I'm not just messing around. Like, I can do stuff. Like, I have the ability to do these things. And I think that that's like a really, like, having worked in the startup industry and tech startups and stuff, and having worked in like someone in Hollywood, tangential to Hollywood, it's like the same question. It's like, it's not all about like the creativity. It's all about like, it's also about, can you make money? Do you know how to make something good? Can you showcase to me that you're a responsible person and that we can be on the same page with what the shared goals are? And so I was not confident that I could make a feature film like my friend Chris Easterly did, with the kind of budget that I would want and the kind of quality that I would want and the kind of experience that I've never had. I didn't feel like I was all that confident in just making the Harlequin, but I felt like if I could take it and break it down into a smaller piece, that I could make that. And I was confident that I could make that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you kind of we had talked a couple days ago about something that I was writing, and you kind of gave me a even deeper insight of how that stuff works. So I'm sure making No Vacancy was just that you had kind of like an idea because of Harley Quinn, but making No Vacancy was probably even more fun because you can kind of come off of that too. And
And I think
awesome.
there's also something to be said for, well, I won't say this is because this is a spoiler. They have, despite the fact that they're about the same thing and about similar characters, they are very different in one specific way that I won't reveal.
Gotcha.
But I will say that I think the difference between them sometimes feels to me like, I don't know how to say this without spoiling it. That one of them seems, I think they're both contain truth, but oftentimes I feel like sometimes the truth that's contained in the story is more like what's in No Vacancy than what's in the Harlequin.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I will also say this: I don't know that the general audience would receive that as well, and so it's a little bit more of like a closer to my heart story than than Harlequin is.
So kind of a question about after this proof of concept does come out. I know you said you want to not ship it around as far as selling the script. You kind of want to go and see if people will pick up the proof of concept and try to make a a bigger movie out of it. Do you, when you do that, is that something you just like, hey, this is my you send the tape in to these big producers, or do you actually go like, hey, I got an appointment with this company and they're gonna sit down and watch this and see what they think about it? Or do you do you just send it in and hopefully they pick it up? Or how does that process work?
So so based on my understanding, which I've never done before, by the way, so I always want to be clear on like, what I have run into and what I haven't run into, right? Because like this was a pretty smooth directing experience, but what if like one of the actors was like really difficult to work with? Maybe I might maybe my experience as a director would have been way negative. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, but it could have been. So I don't have a lot of experience with pitching. I have a lot of experience with pitching businesses. I used to coach people on how to pitch their business.
Oh wow.
I don't have a lot of experience pitching movies, but I've studied it a little bit, and based on what I've studied, it's all about finding a studio that has a similar concept of what films like this should be, what they want to produce, right? If you go to Blumhouse and you're going to pitch to Blumhouse, you're probably pitching horror. If you're going to pitch something to A24, it's probably very art house, weird, but could make a profit, right?
Yeah.
A lot of horror there too. So it's about finding a team of people, just like startups are, finding investors who believe in you and believe in what your idea is and are as passionate about your idea and seeing that come out as you are. And so it's all about being able to, so it's a mix of what you described. Do you just send stuff out and just hopefully it sticks, versus do you try to set up meetings? I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest, because sometimes you don't know somebody and you're like, hey, I'd love to like grab lunch with you, or love to jump on a Zoom call and pitch this to you or whatever. But sometimes, Steven Spielberg or whoever's running Amblin Entertainment is not sitting there being like, I'll take whatever call from whatever person, you know what I mean? Like they don't do that. Excuse me. So I think that a lot of it will be like trying to find those connections who can get to the next connection, you know what I mean? And like going through that kind of process. And so I'm going to talk to a few of my friends, probably try to get some representation, like I mentioned earlier. I'll probably try to look for an agent. You can look for an agent or a manager, or an agent and a manager. I'll probably start with an agent and then see if they can help me get in touch with some of those people, because they have lots of Rolodexes. And so if they know some people and they believe in your script, then they'll send it out, so.
See that as much as, it doesn't, how can I say this? As much as you can just send out your script and the proof of concept, like it's, to get that into the right hands is something that is going to be so difficult. But if God willing, this does happen, you do get this, which hopefully you do, you're gonna look back and kind of take it. How can I put? I'm trying to say, like, once this happens, and like I said, I hope it does happen. I believe that part, you're gonna look back at everything you've done, and it's gonna hit you. And I've always wanted that kind of feeling. That's the reason I'm bringing this up. I've always tried to have these big accomplishments in my life. And I'm sure this would be, of course, a huge accomplishment, something you've been working towards all your life. But I think that reflection is something a lot of people crave, including myself, is once you do get that big break, or, you get that script in the right hands. So I think that part, you're going to look back and be like, wow, this is actually insane. I wish that for you.
It's so, I hope so too. I will say this, and this is just getting really way deep into my psyche. And it's weird because the older I get, the better I am at like slowing down and reflecting and stuff like that. One of the only reasons I wrote these scripts, well, not one of the only reasons, but a main reason why I wrote these scripts was because I was having this health problem that I'd never had before. I had long COVID, and it's forced me to be like way more, try to be more way more introspective. But that does not become naturally to me. It comes naturally from when I write. I get introspective when I write, but other than that, I don't like look back. In fact, I was talking to Lucas Colombo, our DP. He's like, I never think of the past. I never even reflect on it. I'm always looking toward the future. And a lot of times I can get like that too. And it's kind of a bummer because like, it's really hard. There's life just happens, like, I've had whatever this cough is for the last week, and it's messing up my neck, and like the trailer drops and I'm like, I'm excited about it, but I'm also feeling like, man, like it's like, so it's just this, life is weird, like I think what you just said is so true. Like it is a truth. Like you should reflect, you should be like, oh man, this is what we accomplished. You should like set a milestone like that. I think that actually has a spiritual component to it. Like setting a milestone has a spiritual component to it. and I'm just not good at it. I'm just being honest. Like I'm just not good at that. So I would love to have that experience, and I'm so thankful that you said like I hope that you have that experience, because I would love to have that experience. I'm just not good at it, so I'll try my best.
See, I've always, like I said, I'm getting a little deep here, but I've always been the type to reflect on what's happened in my past, because it's literally made me who I am today. And there's no way in hell that I can look back and not think everything that happened to me as a blessing if something, you know, had a positive outcome later on in my life. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
totally.
So it for people who don't look back and it's a, I'm not saying it's a bad mindset, but
Right.
it's not one that I can never have because
Oh,
of
I think it's
like,
that's wisdom, dude. I think that's wisdom.
yeah.
Like I think that that's really smart. Like, I'm learning to be more like that, and I'm appreciating that I'm learning that. But it's like a hard lesson for me. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's good. I'm
It's
glad you said that.
yeah, it's a lot of those kind of, psychological mindsets. It's very hard to, in tune to those kind of mindsets.
Mhm.
So and there's no right way to do it either. So don't
Right.
don't think that, like, as far I told, it sucks, but grieving is, one of those things where
Yes.
there's no right way to grieve. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So there's no right way to do things, but do it the best that you were taught and how, the way you want to eventually be.
Yeah,
That's how I
totally.
always look at things.
That's good.
But
That's really good.
but Jay, man, I appreciate you for coming on and coming and let me react to your trailer. I can't wait till this movie comes out. No Vacancy, guys. Please go hit all the links in the bio for where the movie's going to be and the trailer. If you want to go watch it on your own, please go follow Jay on all his social medias. If you want to come on after the movie drops, we'd love to have you.
Oh, of course,
I,
dude. I have to
I'd
I have
be
to get your take on the finished film now.
Oh yes, definitely. Um, and I can ask you questions that won't be spoiled. All the questions I
Right.
have in my head, you
Right.
won't be able to spoil it for me. But um, Jay, God bless you, man. I hope everything works out for you. I hope all the people see this, take something from it, and see the passion you have behind your work. And a lot of people who are passionate about things, unfortunately they don't get to see,
Mm,
other people don't get to see how passionate they are. But
right.
because you do have this field where you can put it on film where other people could see it, I hope people get to see that. I hope people get to see the passion you have behind this. So I wish you nothing but the best, and thank you again for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother. And I'll say this: like we've only known each other for like 4 weeks,
Yeah,
and I already
exactly.
feel like we're best friends, dude. We have the best conversations about stories. I love it. Love coming on the show. Thank you for having me. I told Tones, because we were talking about just a conversation. No, we didn't record it or anything. And I was telling him like, hey, next time you want to ask me questions, like, come on my show, and
Yeah.
and you ask me questions about what storytelling. I'm totally happy to answer them all. But I also wanted to just say congratulations to you and Camper for being a part of the OG family.
Oh yeah, thank you.
OG 55 family. It's good to have you guys on board. It's a really good. I think your show is going to be really, really fun. So it's awesome that you guys are on board. And yeah, just thanks for having me. If people want to watch the trailer, we're having some YouTube problems right now. Actually, Tone's the one that told me about that, but I didn't even know. So the trailer is kind of difficult right this minute to find. By the time it might be resolved by the time this is live. But if you, just in case, go follow me here on X, and on my profile, pinned to the top of my profile is the trailer. Easy to watch it there too.
Yep. And guys, go follow his Twitter because of the difficulties they're having with the YouTube page. He'll kind of update you and give you the right link to that YouTube where it's going to be put on. Go follow him on YouTube. Go follow his his Twitter so you guys get live updates about what's going on with the film. And hopefully Jay will be back in for the film and kind of get the post what was it called? Not the post credits, but after the movie's watched, we kind of get his insight on how so we don't get spoilers about.
There also is a post-credit scene. You said post-credit, so I'm just letting you know. Not in No Vacancy. There is a post-credit scene. So if you watch it, stick around to after the credits.
I am so hyped now, dude. So hyped. But guys, if you guys want to follow me on social media, Tones_TV, all platforms. Don't forget to comment and let us know what you thought about the trailer. Let us know what you guys are excited for about the movie. Any questions you guys have, put in the comments, or go to either of our Twitters and let us know. Also follow the podcast that Candid Camper and I do, Bad Thoughts Podcast. We did an episode with Jay Sherer where we kind of went into depth of what No Vacancy was. Now that we have the trailer, like I said, I didn't want to ask too much because to spoil the movie, because I'm the type to be excited about things. So, but if you guys want to hear more about that, go ahead and follow Bad Thoughts Podcast. But thanks again, Jay. We love you, brother.
Dude, I am so appreciative of you. Thank you so much for reacting with me. Thanks for talking about it. And I can't wait for people to see it. So thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. We'll see you soon. We'll get you back on here right after the movie. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Hope you guys have a great night. Love y'all.